My name is Harper. My ex-husband and his new wife didn't just try to ruin my business, they tried to erase me. But when they pushed too far, I stopped playing nice. And turned their perfect little empire into ashes. If you enjoy betrayal, resilience, and sweet revenge stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that serves karma just right. Welcome back to the story. There's something sacred about early mornings in Eugene. The city is still wrapped in mist, the streets quiet except for the occasional jogger or dog walker. Inside the maple hearth, the world smells like cinnamon, browned butter, and warm maple syrup. I opened the shop 3 years ago, right after the divorce finalized. At 31, I wasn't looking to reinvent myself. I just needed something that was mine, something untouched by Derek or his betrayal. Baking had always been a refuge, even when I was a kid, elbows deep in cookie dough while my parents argued upstairs. Now, it was a business. A dream realized. The maple hearth sat on a cozy corner of Willamette Street, surrounded by tall oaks and old brick storefronts. The windows always fogged up in the morning from the ovens, and the bell above the door gave the most satisfying little chime every time someone stepped in. Locals knew us for our lavender scones and smoked sea salt caramel bars. I knew most of my regulars by name, retired teachers. New moms, college kids who craved something homemade. Peace had finally rooted itself in my life. My days were filled with mixing, kneading, decorating, and watching people's faces light up when they took that first bite. There was nothing glamorous about waking at 4 a.m. and hauling 50-pound bags of flour, but it was honest. It was healing. I'd even started laughing again. Then, one Tuesday afternoon, Claire, my assistant baker, came into the kitchen with her phone in hand and that look on her face. The kind people give you when they know a storm's coming but aren't sure how to say it. "You're not gonna like this," she said, handing me her screen. A Facebook post from a neighborhood group flashed in front of me. Spotted. Derek Langley and wife at the new property off Jefferson. Guess who's moving back to Eugene? I stared at it for a moment, numb. Derek Langley. My ex-husband. The man who once swore Portland was his forever city and that he'd never live in tree-hugger Eugene again. He was back, of course he was. With her. Paige. My stomach twisted, not because I still loved him. I didn't. That flame burned out long ago. But the idea of him, of them, breathing my air. Walking my streets, even possibly strolling past my shop like nothing happened. It felt like someone had poured cold water over a perfectly risen soufflé. "I'm fine," I said quickly, setting the phone down. Claire raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "Yeah," I lied. "It's just Eugene. People move back all the time." But that night, when the ovens were off and the lights dimmed, I stood alone behind the counter and stared out the front window. The peaceful fog had turned to drizzle. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something I hadn't felt since the day I caught Derek cheating, a tremor in my chest. Something was coming, and it didn't smell like maple. I told myself it didn't matter. Derek was just another ghost in town, someone I'd already buried in memory, along with the life we never finished. Paige was irrelevant. So was their baby, their smiles, their suburban photo shoots. I had a business to run. Scones don't bake themselves, but ghosts have a way of seeping through cracks, especially the ones you never truly sealed shut. At first, it was little things. A regular, Becca, who usually raved about my cardamom coffee cake, stopped coming in. Then Sam from the flower shop down the block mentioned someone said I wasn't as clean as I used to be. I laughed it off. This was Eugene. People here recycled toothpicks and meditated about fennel. Gossip blew in like pollen. Then came the reviews, Yelp, Google. Even Facebook. Used to love this place, but recently it's felt off. Found a hair in my cookie. Won't be back. Too sweet, not fresh. Sad to see a local gem fall like this. All from usernames I didn't recognize. All in the same 2-week window. I double-checked our hairnets, gloves, sanitization routine, everything was spotless. Claire even joked, maybe we're being haunted. I forced a laugh, but the truth is, I felt it too. An edge in the air. A hum behind the quiet. My peace, what I'd fought so hard for, was unraveling, thread by thread. On a rainy Thursday, I finally saw them. I was wiping down tables near the window when a shiny black SUV pulled up. Derek stepped out first. He looked older. The years had thinned his hair and widened his jaw. He still had that lazy confidence, though, the kind that made people think he was charming until he wasn't. Then Paige stepped out, holding a baby in one arm and a pumpkin spice latte in the other. She wore heels, in the rain. Her blonde hair was untouched by the drizzle. She didn't look at my shop, but I knew she saw it. She saw me. I ducked back behind the espresso machine before they noticed. My hands trembled as I res-tacked coffee sleeves. Claire gave me a look. "They're here, huh?" She asked quietly. "Yep." Neither of us said anything more. That night, the last customer left right before closing. I locked the door and stood in the quiet hum of the bakery. My sanctuary. My home. And for the first time since opening the Maple Hearth, I wondered if I was losing it, not because of competition, but because of them. I'd worked too hard to let their shadows haunt my flour, my counters, my life. But something told me they weren't just here to raise a baby and plant petunias. They were here to take something, and I wasn't sure I was ready to lose it. I wanted to believe it was coincidence. A bad month. A string of off days. But when sabotage wears perfume and smiles through bleached teeth, you start connecting dots. The first Real hit came on a Monday. I arrived at the Maple Hearth just after 4 a.m., the sky still bruised with night. I stepped inside and instantly felt it, wrongness in the air. A bitter, metallic scent. Claire was already inside, frozen in front of the mixer. "Harper," she said, voice low. "You need to see this." Inside the mixer bowl was a thick, sludgy mess. Not dough. Not batter. I leaned in and smelled it. Sugar. Too much of it. Bags worth. Packed in like cement, I opened the dry storage. Sugar bags had been slit open and emptied, not stolen, just dumped. Deliberate. Mean. The mixer's motor groaned and smoked when we tried to start it. Fried. Thousands of dollars ruined. And a full day's work lost. I filed a report with the police, but they shrugged it off. "Could be a prank," they said. "No cameras in the kitchen. Not much we can do. No forced entry. No fingerprints. Just destruction." Claire said what I wouldn't. It was Paige. Or someone she sent. I didn't argue. I just cleaned, but the sabotage didn't stop. 2 days later, a health inspector showed up. Clipboard in hand. "No warning, we received a complaint," she said, scanning the front display case with thinly veiled suspicion. "Anonymous. Said your storage practices are unsanitary." It was laughable. I ran a tight kitchen, labeled containers, double-checked temps, no cutting corners. Still, the inspector found just enough to justify a temporary closure. A mislabeled container of almond flour. A slightly warped fridge seal. Minor things, but stacked together, they painted a picture. We closed for 3 days. 3 days of refunds, lost revenue, panicked rescheduling with suppliers. And 3 days for Sweet Pages, the new dessert shop 2 blocks away. To bask in the glow of fresh competition, I stopped pretending it was a coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was a takedown. And the part that burned wasn't just the money or the mixer or the wasted hours. It was that Paige had found a way to gut me without ever getting her hands dirty. She smiled at me in passing once, outside a farmer's market. Said, "I heard about the inspection. That's tough. Maybe you're just a little too busy for all this, Harper." Her tone was syrupy. Fake concern dripping from every word. I stared at her. I wanted to scream. To shove a cinnamon roll in her perfect, smug face. But I didn't. I just smiled and said, "Funny. I was thinking the same thing about you." Then I walked away. Back to my shop. My ovens. My scarred mixer. Let her play dirty. I'd played nice for too long. But even sugar can burn. 3 days after reopening, she walked in like she owned the place. Paige, dressed in a beige trench coat and designer boots, not a speck of flour on her anywhere. She looked like she belonged on a real estate billboard, not in a bakery where the air was warm with cinnamon and effort. Her heels clicked across the tile like gunshots, echoing louder than the low hum of the espresso machine. Claire stiffened behind the counter. I didn't blame her. Paige didn't belong here, not in the maple hearth, not after everything. I stepped out from the back, wiping my hands on my apron, already bracing. Harper. Paige sang, all sunshine and venom. So glad you're back open. I was worried. Were you? I asked, evenly. She smiled wider. Of course. Eugene wouldn't be the same without your little shop. Her eyes scanned the room. She didn't look impressed. Probably comparing it to her perfectly curated Instagram-ready cafe down the street, the one with imported tiles and pastel macarons. Her bakery felt like a Pinterest board. Mine felt like home. Or it used to. I just thought I'd stop by. Support local business and all, she said, picking up a lemon bar from the display. Ooh, do you still use real butter? I heard some people cut corners these days. My jaw clenched. Claire turned and disappeared into the back, wisely avoiding the incoming storm. I stepped closer, lowered my voice. What do you want? Paige? She blinked, all faux innocence. Nothing. Just being neighborly. It's a small town, Harper. We're bound to cross paths. And since we're practically family now, I didn't flinch, but she saw the flicker. She was good at that, studying reactions like a bloodhound. You know, she continued, tilting her head, sometimes I wonder if you're holding on too tightly to something that's already done. Derek's happy. We're building a life. Maybe you should do the same. I laughed softly. Destroying my business is how you build your life? Her eyes sparkled, her smile tight. Sweetheart, if you can't keep up, that's hardly my fault. There it was. The real Paige. The claws behind the manicure. She didn't just want success, she wanted mine erased. My story rewritten, my shop replaced. She wasn't competing. She was consuming. I built this place from scratch, I said quietly. While you were busy decorating your nursery, I was here at 4 a.m. elbow deep in dough, bleeding for every dollar. She shrugged. And yet, here I am. Still standing. I stepped forward, my voice low and even. You're standing in my bakery. Remember that. Paige set the lemon bar down, untouched. Well. Best of luck, Harper. Some people just aren't built for the long game. She turned and walked out, her scent lingering like artificial roses and smoke. I stared at the bar she'd touched and tossed it in the trash. Let her play her games. But now I knew the truth. This wasn't rivalry. It was war. The morning after Paige's visit, I couldn't get out of bed. The air in my apartment felt heavier than usual, like the walls were pressing in on me. I stared at the ceiling, numb, while the thought looped in my head like a broken record. What's the point anymore? Since the sabotage, business had slowed to a crawl. The damage to the mixer alone had cost me more than a month's profits. Reopening after the health inspection was supposed to bring relief, but instead, the regulars trickled in cautiously, their smiles uncertain, their loyalty shaken by whispers I couldn't silence. I was tired. Tired of fighting ghosts. Tired of pretending the weight on my chest wasn't crushing me. Around 6 a.m., I texted Claire, not coming in today. Just need a minute. 10 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. I opened it in pajama pants and yesterday's regrets. Claire stood there with 2 coffees and a look that said she wouldn't let me fall without a fight. You built something beautiful, she said, pushing into the apartment without waiting for an invite. You don't get to quit because Barbie and Ken down the street threw a tantrum. I sighed. It's more than that. Claire. She's not just sabotaging my business, she's trying to erase me. Claire sat across from me at the kitchen table and handed me one of the coffees. So don't let her. You said it yourself, this place is yours. So fight like it. Her words stirred something in me, something buried but not gone. After she left, I sat in front of an old banker's box I hadn't touched since the divorce. Legal papers, old receipts, business agreements, and a journal from that dark year. My fingers moved automatically, sorting through forgotten chapters of my life. Then I found it, a flash drive, unmarked, except for a tiny sticker that read Derek's Business, 2019. I remembered it now. He'd left it in my laptop once when we still shared a house. I'd backed up his files during a frantic late-night fight about taxes and forgot it existed. Curiosity, or something deeper, pulled me to my laptop. I plugged it in, folders opened, spreadsheets, emails, records. Some of them from before our split, others clearly after. And then I saw it, a series of creative deductions, falsified income statements, and large cash transfers that didn't match up with his official filings. I clicked through, heart racing. Fraud. Maybe not enough to land him in jail on its own, but enough to raise serious red flags with the right people, and Paige. Her name was all over the documents. Co-signatures, shared accounts, property titles. They'd hidden more than just a secret wedding, they'd hidden crimes. I sat back in my chair, the weight on my chest lifting just enough to breathe. I wasn't broken, I wasn't done. They wanted to erase me. But now I had something they didn't expect, leverage. I hadn't thought about that part of my marriage in years. Back then, when I first discovered Derek's creative accounting, I brushed it off as bad judgment. He was charming. Always able to twist the truth into something that sounded reasonable. Everyone does it, he said once, waving away the idea that tax laws were meant for people like us. Write-offs keep small businesses alive. You'd be naive not to take advantage. Naive. That word used to cut, now? It lit a fire in me. I spent the next 2 nights combing through the flash drive and old boxes of files I'd almost thrown away after the divorce. Receipts, invoices, flagged emails, bits and pieces that, on their own, might not scream criminal. But together? They told a story. One folder labeled Langley Partners. Q2 adjustments showed Derek deducting expenses for a business trip he never took, because I remembered that weekend. He was in Bend with Paige. I'd found the hotel charges on our joint statement and thought it was a glitch. It wasn't. Another spreadsheet showed payments to contractors who didn't exist. I recognized some of the names, Paige's cousins. Fake invoices. Fake services. Real money. The deeper I dug, the more the truth bled through. Derek and Paige had been playing the system for years. And stupidly, he'd backed up his secrets on my laptop. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he thought I'd never be smart, or angry, enough to use it, but I wasn't the same Harper anymore. I took careful screenshots, encrypted everything, and created multiple backups. I wasn't about to make this public without protection. A few documents still had my name buried in them from the early days, and I had no intention of getting caught in their fall. Then I found the email. It was from Paige to Derek, dated 6 months ago. Make sure Harper's Place stays under pressure. The less business she has, the easier it'll be to expand the brand. It made my blood run cold. They weren't just being petty, they were actively trying to destroy me. Not emotionally. Not personally, professionally. I had suspected it for weeks. The sabotage, the timing of the inspection, the way her dessert shop opened just days before my busiest season. But this was confirmation. Written proof. That night, I stared at my reflection in the bakery's front window. Outside, the street was dark and wet, shimmering under the lamplight. They thought I was too soft. That I'd just disappear quietly, like some cautionary tale they'd whisper about over brunch. But I wasn't disappearing, I was documenting, and soon, I would be exposing every lie they ever told. Let them smile in public. Let them sip wine and toast their new life. Because I wasn't just holding the truth, I was holding the match, and I was ready to light it. I created the burner account at midnight, no name. No traceable number. Just a string of letters and numbers that meant nothing to anyone, except me. I attached everything. The fraudulent spreadsheets, the fabricated invoices, the email from Paige telling Derek to sabotage my business. Each file labeled, each detail explained. I included a timeline and highlighted entries. It wasn't revenge, it was evidence. Cold, clean, damning. The email subject line was simple: whistleblower report, Langley Partners page, Langley Real Estate. I sent it to the IRS tip line, the Oregon Department of Revenue. 3 local journalists known for digging into political and financial scandals, and a watchdog blog that thrived on corruption stories. Then I closed the laptop and waited. The first 3 days were quiet. Unbearably so. I kept baking, kept smiling at customers, kept pretending nothing was different, while inside, I simmered like caramel just before it burns. On the 4th day, someone posted a screenshot on the Eugene Community Facebook group: breaking, local business owners under investigation for tax fraud and real estate misconduct. It linked to a blog post with leaked files, excerpts from Derek's accounting, and a pixelated screenshot of Paige's email. That was all it took. The story spread like wildfire. Within 24 hours, local news stations picked it up. One anchor called it a shocking betrayal of public trust from 2 of Eugene's most well-known entrepreneurs. Derek's smug face flashed across the screen next to Paige's perfect real estate headshot. The words tax fraud, embezzlement, and false filing scrolled across the bottom of the screen like a warning siren. By the end of the week, Derek's office had been raided. Paige's brokerage suspended her license pending further investigation. Clients started pulling out of her listings. One of the journalists dug into their finances and discovered they'd recently defaulted on a second mortgage for their cafe. Sweet Paige's closed its doors without warning on a Saturday morning. Just a taped sign that read, "Closed for maintenance." But everyone knew the truth. I never said a word publicly. Never acknowledged the fire I'd set. I kept my apron clean and my head down, serving honey cakes and espresso like it was just another normal week. But inside, I watched it all unravel. Claire handed me a copy of the Register Guard with Derek and Paige's name splashed across the front page. "You see this?" She grinned. "Looks like karma finally got a publicist." I didn't smile. Not fully. Not yet. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. About taking back my name, my bakery, my peace. Let them deny it. Let them scramble for lawyers and press statements. It was too late. The fire had already spread, and for once, I wasn't the one getting burned. The first time I saw Derek in handcuffs, it wasn't on the news. It was in person. I'd taken a detour through downtown after dropping off pastries at a community fundraiser. Traffic was jammed near the courthouse. A crowd had gathered, phones raised like tiny torches. And there he was, stepping out of a black SUV flanked by 2 federal agents. His wrists bound in steel, his face pale and tight. No more smug grins. No more confident swagger. Just a man who finally ran out of excuses. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. I'd already moved past the need to confront him. The silence of his downfall was sweeter than any shouted "I told you so." The official charges were staggering: wire fraud, tax evasion, falsifying business records. They indicted him on 7 counts. And while the trial was still months away, the damage was immediate. Paige's world collapsed just as quickly. Her real estate license was suspended indefinitely, pending review of her involvement. Her face vanished from the local bus benches. Her name, once plastered across open house flyers and luxury listings, became toxic overnight. Sellers pulled their contracts. Buyers canceled closings, and Sweet Paige's? Gone. One day it was there, full of pastel signage, overpriced cupcakes, and Instagram filters. And the next, the windows were covered in brown paper, the doors padlocked, the interior stripped. A for lease sign dangled in the rain. Swinging like a final insult, word spread that Paige and Derek had quietly listed their home. Claire heard from a customer that they were downsizing and considering a fresh start elsewhere. Translation: running, back at the maple hearth, things were steady. Not booming, not miraculous, just peaceful. People returned. Apologies came quietly. Some customers stopped by just to say they were sorry for believing the rumors. Others brought flowers or left extra tips. I didn't ask for any of it, but it warmed something that had been frozen for a long time. Still, beneath the satisfaction, there was something else: bitterness. Not because I regretted what I'd done, far from it. But because I'd let them live in my head for too long. I had let them twist my peace, my purpose. And even as they crumbled, I realized I'd lost something too: time, energy, parts of myself I'd given to anger. Claire found me one night scrubbing the same countertop for 10 straight minutes. She leaned beside me and said, "You got your justice, Harper. Don't forget to get your life back too." I paused, hands wet, sponge idle. She was right, the war was over, the queen of fake smiles had fallen. The king of shortcuts was headed for court. And I was still standing. Apron on. Doors open. I wasn't just the survivor, I was the one who rebuilt, and this time, I wouldn't let anyone take it from me. 6 months later, the maple hearth smelled like lavender shortbread and second chances. We had just finished the rebrand, new logo, freshly painted window trim in a deep cedar green, and a hand-lettered phrase beneath our name, "Reclaimed Resilient." It wasn't just aesthetic. It was personal. After the scandal broke and the dust settled, something shifted. Customers didn't just come in for croissants anymore, they came to be part of something. They brought stories, gratitude, even confessions. "I'm sorry I believed what I heard," one man told me while holding a box of lemon bars. "I should have known better." I always smiled and said the same thing: "You're here now. That's what matters." And it was true. The pain of what Derek and Paige did, the sabotage, the slander, the attempt to erase me, had dulled into something quieter. Not gone, but tempered, like steel forged through fire. I used to think their fall would fix everything, but healing didn't come from their collapse, it came from the way I rebuilt. Claire became more than just an employee, she became a partner. We launched new menu items together, sourced from local farms, even hosted weekend baking classes. The town responded. Lines wrapped around the corner some mornings. Our maple pecan sticky buns became legendary. One afternoon, I stepped outside during a lull, coffee in hand, and watched 2 teenage girls snap selfies in front of our new mural. A local artist had painted it after the reopening, a woman rising from a cracked loaf of bread, steam curling around her like wings. Bold. Strange. Honest, it made me feel seen. I didn't hear from Derek again. His court date was pushed to the fall, but his name had already become synonymous with scandal. Last I heard, Paige had moved to her sister's place in Idaho, trying to rebrand her own life. Good luck with that. And me? I didn't just survive, I evolved. The maple hearth was no longer just a bakery, it was a symbol. Of grit. Of growth. Of every woman who's ever been told to sit down, be quiet, accept less. Every flaky crust and golden scone now carried the weight of a story I wasn't afraid to tell anymore. One evening, as I wiped down the counter before closing, Claire looked over at me. "You ever think," she asked, "if none of that happened, Derek, Paige, the sabotage, you'd still be playing small?" I thought about it. "No," I said softly. "I think I needed to break open to figure out what I was made of." She nodded. "Turns out, it's pie crust and fire." I laughed, but she wasn't wrong. They tried to shut my doors, but I opened them wider. They tried to ruin my name, but I carved it into wood and hung it in the window. And now, every time that bell rings and someone walks through the door, I'm reminded, they didn't break me, they baked me stronger. If this story kept you hooked, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories of betrayal, resilience, and redemption. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment when karma strikes back. Your support helps these stories reach more people who need to hear them.